A weary waitress mistakenly climbed into the wrong vehicle after finishing her late shift, only to find herself entangled in the secret redemption plot of mysterious millionaire. Rain pounded on the windows in a relentless rhythm, while thunder crashed over the greasy roof of the all-night diner on the city's outskirts. Inside, the dull buzz of unstable fluorescent lights mingled with the sounds of clinking dishes and dragging footsteps. Grace, 25, moved like a whisper through the booths, balancing 2 mugs of coffee and wearing a smile that didn't quite meet her eyes. Her feet were soaked, her apron bearing the marks of countless strangers' meals. Her muscles screamed from the unending shift. The clock above the counter flickered. 3:17 a.m. Outside, the storm raged on without mercy. She stuffed her modest tips, just a few crumpled bills, into her coat pocket, waved to the sleepy cook, and stepped into the deluge, gripping her phone. Its screen was cracked, the battery clinging to 1%. She'd ordered a rideshare 15 minutes earlier. All she wanted now was to collapse into a back seat and disappear into the night. Just down the alley, a sleek black car idled, engine softly humming, its tinted windows gleaming under the rain. Right make, right spot, right color. No other vehicles in sight. Exhausted and desperate, she rushed over, pulled the back door open, and slid in, trailing water over the leather seat. Finally, she sighed, closing the door. "I thought you—" A harsh click interrupted her. She froze. A gun was aimed at her head. From the front seat, a man in a dark coat turned, his cold, steel-gray eyes locked on her. His voice was low and threatening. "Who are you?" he demanded. "Who sent you to follow me?" Grace's heart thundered in her chest. "What? No, wait. I just got off work. I thought this was—" "Don't lie to me," he cut her off. "You knew exactly where to find me." "Who are you working for?" "I'm not working for anyone," she cried, hands raised in panic. "I'm just a waitress. I don't know who you are." For a tense moment, neither moved. His finger hovered over the trigger. But then, something changed in his expression. A flicker of doubt, confusion, calculation. Before he could act, bang. The passenger window shattered, glass flying inward. Grace ducked, screaming as bullets tore into the car. "Down!" The man barked, spinning the wheel. The vehicle shot forward, tires shrieking on the rain-soaked street. Grace slammed against the seat as they sped into the storm. Windshield smeared with water, headlights slicing the dark. More shots rang out behind them. "Why are they shooting at us?" Grace shrieked. "Shut up," the man snapped. "You led them here, didn't you?" "No. I swear I didn't," she cried. Gunfire again. The rear view mirror exploded. He slammed the gas pedal. They darted down alleys and narrow streets, the city's edges rushing past like a blur. Grace gripped the seat, heart racing, barely processing chaos. "Please," she sobbed. "Please. I don't know who you are. I don't know what this is. I just wanted to go home." He didn't answer. He was too focused on driving, his life, and now hers, hanging in the balance. Eventually, the shots faded. The shadows gave way to silence, broken only by the rain and the humming engine. The man turned onto an empty road lined with trees and flickering streetlights. He pulled into the lot of an abandoned warehouse, then shut the engine off, his grip on the wheel tight, his breath heavy. Grace didn't move. When he spoke, his voice was raw, but steady. "What's your name?" "Grace," she whispered. "You really don't know who I am?" "No, I don't." "You're not with them?" "I don't even know who them is." He stared at her for several seconds. Then, at last, he lowered the gun. "Lucas," he said. "Lucas Black." She looked at him. Soaked, shaking, backed into the door like prey. "Who are you?" He glanced away. "Someone you were never supposed to meet." By the time they reached the fringes of the industrial zone, the rain had eased. Lucas guided the car behind a crumbling textile factory, its windows boarded and roof half collapsed. He parked behind a rusted shipping container and stepped into shadows. Grace waited, unsure, before finally following him. Her shoes squished with every step, soaked through. Her hands trembled with cold and fear, but she held her chin high. Lucas pried open a steel door at the building's side and led her inside. The warehouse was dim, full of forgotten machinery and the scent of dust and rust, untouched for years. Tucked away in the back corner was a rough setup that barely passed as livable. A mattress perched on wooden crates, a portable heater buzzing faintly, a cluttered table littered with surveillance feeds, scattered electronics, and disorganized files. "This is my kingdom," he muttered with dry sarcasm, tossing a duffel bag to the ground. Grace hovered near the entrance, arms crossed, clearly uncomfortable. "You live here?" she asked. "For the time being. I want to go home." "You can't." She recoiled. "What do you mean I can't?" Lucas exhaled deeply, rubbing his face with both hands. "Your phone's dead. The street cameras caught your face when we bolted from the diner. If I let you walk away, they'll track you and then they'll find me. I can't take that chance." "So what, am I your hostage now?" "No," Lucas said firmly, locking eyes with her. "I'm not chaining you up, but I'm asking you to stay. For your safety and mine. Just until it's safe again." Grace paced restlessly, her breathing quick. "This is insane. It doesn't even feel real." Lucas filled a kettle and placed it on a portable burner. "Believe me, I didn't want to drag anyone else into this." "Then let me leave." "If you scream or someone spots us, we're both dead," he snapped. "So no, I can't let that happen." She froze. His tone cut through the panic. After a long pause, she sank into a cold metal chair. "Fine," she muttered, "but you better start explaining." Lucas passed her a blanket and a warm mug. Then, for the first time, he sat across from her, not as a stranger with a weapon, but as someone quietly unraveling. "I wasn't always like this," he began in a low voice. "There was a time I was someone else, before the world stripped me down to the bones." Grace frowned. "What's that supposed to mean?" "I worked in intelligence, government sector, then private security, cyber defense, high-end stuff. I made more than I knew what to do with. And then I thought I got out in time, but I found something I wasn't supposed to. Next thing I knew, they came for the people I loved, burned my business, pushed my brother over the edge, nearly killed my mother." His jaw tightened. "They erased me from the records. So I let them think I was gone for good." Grace stared, stunned. The puzzle pieces began to form a picture. "I'm not here to run anymore," Lucas said, voice steady now. "I'm here to finish what they tried to erase." She swallowed hard. "And I'm just supposed to sit here and accept that?" "I don't care if you believe it," he said. "I just needed someone untouched by all of it. Someone who doesn't know the headlines. Someone outside the system that tried to break me." "You don't even know me," she whispered. Lucas watched her, unblinking. "I know enough. You got into the wrong car and didn't flinch when bullets started flying. That says more than any resume ever could." Grace let out a sharp breath, somewhere between a laugh and a sob. "So, what does that make me? Your accidental sidekick?" "No," he replied softly. "You're just a stranger. And that might be exactly what I need right now." Outside, the wind howled to the broken architecture, but something subtle shifted in the air between them. A fragile sliver of connection formed in the middle of a storm neither had asked for. The days bled together inside the derelict warehouse. Rain continued to fall, concealing the ghosts of both their pasts. Grace kept mostly to herself, her silence gradually evolving into quiet observation. Lucas left most mornings and didn't return until nightfall, bruised, silent, carrying intel and tension like armor. Grace stayed behind, cleaning, making tea, watching the wind ripple through the fractured windows. But her curiosity grew heavier. On the fourth day, with Lucas out for supplies, she gave in. He had warned her not to touch the files. But the folders lay open, almost inviting her to look. She skimmed through pages, maps, hacked emails, receipts. Then her hand stopped. A worn black and white photo stared back at her. The name below it sent a chill straight through her. Henry Vale. Her grip tightened around the paper. Her lungs forgot how to breathe. That face, it wasn't just from a scandal. He was the man, the one who stole her childhood, the man who manipulated her father into investing in a fraud, the man whose lies drove her father to end his life. She'd been 16. She remembered the media circus, the pitying stares, the notices on the door. Her hands trembled as she shoved the documents back. Her chest ached with a grief she'd buried deep. But now, it clawed its way back to the surface. She thought she had moved on. She hadn't. Lucas returned hours later, soaked and scraped. He noticed a shift in her immediately. What happened? Grace said nothing. She threw the photo on the table. Why him? She asked, voice raw. Lucas stiffened. His eyes flicked to the photo. You went through my files. I had a right to. That man, her voice cracked. He didn't just come for you. He destroyed my family. My father trusted him completely. He poured every penny we had into that scam. We lost the house. My sister had to drop out of school, just keep food on the table. And my dad, her voice faltered. Lucas's expression softened, his eyes gentler now. He took his own life. Grace blinked away the tears that threatened to fall. You knew. I had a feeling, Lucas replied in a low tone. I've seen this pattern too many times. Good people devastated by veiled schemes. But I didn't know what happened to you. Grace looked at him sharply. You should have said something. I didn't think it would change anything. Well, it does, she snapped, because I thought I was just some random mistake in your operation. A waitress who got in the wrong car at the wrong time. But now it feels like more than that. Lucas leaned in, his hands resting lightly on the edge of the table. You think I orchestrated this? I don't know what to think, Grace said, her voice breaking. But I do know that man deserves to fall. And I won't just sit back and watch you bring him down alone. Their eyes locked, and for the first time, there was something more between them. Not suspicion, not blame, recognition, a shared fire. I've spent years working toward this, Lucas said, his voice slow and deliberate. No names, no ties, no one to lose. But maybe this wasn't random. Grace stepped forward too, the space between them vanishing. Maybe this is the universe giving us a shot to take back what was stolen from us. Silence stretched between them, heavy, full of meaning. Lucas nodded. We do it right. No rage, no vendetta. We expose him, destroy him, legally, publicly, financially. Grace gave a cold, ironic smile. You almost sound like you believe in justice. I believe in stopping monsters the way they stopped us, Lucas said. But we keep our hands clean doing it. She glanced down at the file, then back up at him. Then let's finish him. Together. Something shifted in that instant. They weren't just two strangers pulled into the same storm. They were allies. Two wounded souls with scars that mirrored each other, finally standing on the same side of the line. The war had become personal. But for the first time in a long time, neither of them felt alone. The next morning, Grace stood at the cracked warehouse window, watching the fog drift across the ground like silent waves. She didn't feel like a prisoner anymore, or a bystander. Something inside her had changed. I've got an idea, she said without turning around. Lucas looked up from the table, where he was carefully honing the blade of a pocket knife. That already sounds dangerous. Grace turned to face him, eyes steady. Vale's going to the Haverly Foundation Gala next week. It's his annual charade, donating $1 million in public while laundering triple that behind closed doors. Lucas raised an eyebrow. How do you know that? I'm maybe a waitress, but I'm not invisible. Rich people talk like you're part of the wallpaper. I've worked that event 3 years in a row. Lucas leaned forward. You want to go back? I want to get close enough to catch him in the act. We need solid proof. Something explosive. This isn't a game, Grace. That world? They'll chew you up if they sense you're a threat. That's why I need your help, she said, stepping closer. Not just to get the recording. I want to know how to protect myself. Lucas's expression darkened slightly. You sure about this? I'm done being scared, Grace replied quietly. I'm done running. I want to fight. Over the next 3 days, the warehouse became a crash course in covert survival. Lucas taught her how to detect bugs, how to stay invisible in a crowd, how to activate a hidden mic with a flick of the wrist. She learned to read lips from across the room, to smile while scanning for exits, to take down someone twice her size. You picked this up fast. Lucas admitted one evening after she knocked him off balance during a sparring drill. They both hit the floor laughing, breathless. Maybe I've been training without knowing it, she said, brushing hair from her face. Lucas smiled, a real one this time. It reached his eyes. That night, over canned soup and stale crackers, Grace turned a tiny device over in her hand. A micro-recorder, no larger than a coin, glowing softly. Nervous? Lucas asked. She paused and shook her head. I used to be, not anymore. Their eyes met across the candlelight flickering between them. A warm, steady silence filled the space. Grace spoke, voice barely above a whisper. For the first time in years, I don't feel like a victim. Lucas reached across the table, his fingers brushing hers gently. He didn't say a word. He didn't need to. He simply held on, just a little tighter. An unspoken promise passed between them. It wasn't love, at least not yet, but it was something true. Something fierce, quietly waiting to bloom. By week's end, they were prepared. Grace was no longer just a waitress who had accidentally stepped into the wrong life. She was marching into danger with clarity in her gaze, resolve in her chest, and a fire in her soul. And beside her stood Lucas, a man who had once sworn off trust, now standing with someone he was finally willing to fight for. The Haverly Foundation gala glittered like something out of a film. Grace wore a borrowed black dress, her hair pinned back neatly, an earpiece nestled discreetly beneath a curled strand. She moved unnoticed among the waitstaff, a tray of champagne glasses balanced in her hands. As she drifted through the crowd of elites in diamonds, her pulse hammered in her ears. Lucas's voice came through the calm, steady and calm. You're doing great. He's by the north wall. Gray tux. That's our guy. Grace spotted Henry Vale instantly. He looked older than in the photos, but still carried himself with the arrogance of someone untouchable. Laughing, slapping backs, swirling his drink like he owned every room he walked into, and gave the world nothing in return. He didn't even glance at her as she approached. Champagne, sir? He waved her off. Keep him coming. She bowed her head slightly, stepping back just as a hidden recorder sewn into her dress came to life. Even over the chatter and clinking glasses, she caught snippets of Vale's voice, mentioning a new front company, talking about offshore accounts, a name she recognized. One Lucas had circled in red. It was enough. She turned toward the curtain for her exit and nearly collided with a man in black. Security. Sharp eyes. Quick movements. Where are you going? He asked, already suspicious. Grace forced a smile. Restroom. He stared at the now empty tray in her hands. You're not on staff. She ran. His voice shouted after her as she shoved through the emergency exit. Lights flashed. Sirens screamed. She sprinted down sterile corridors, bolted downstairs, burst out into the alley. Her breathing was ragged, shoes in hand. And from the dark, an engine roared. Lucas! Get on, he shouted. She leapt onto the back of the bike just as another guard appeared, weapon drawn. The tires screeched over slick pavement as they sped off. Turning hard, a figure lunged in the shadows, swinging a pipe. Lucas twisted, throwing his body between the blow and Grace. It slammed into his shoulder. He winced, but didn't slow. Grace held on tight, trembling as the city blurred behind them. Back at the warehouse, she helped him off the bike, her fingers trembling. You're hurt. I've had worse, he murmured, though sweat dotted his brow. She guided him to a chair and tore open his jacket. A dark bruise spread across his shoulder. You need a hospital. No hospitals. They'll be watching. Her hands worked quickly, cleaning the wound and pressing gauze against the swelling. He flinched but stayed silent. After a long moment, Lucas spoke, voice low. I thought I could keep you outside all of this. Safe. Away from what I've become. Grace stared at him, unmoving. But you stepped in and did the one thing I never had the courage for. He reached for her hand, blood on his fingertips, trembling slightly. If this had gone wrong, I couldn't have lived with it. Grace didn't say a word. She only held his hand tighter. And for the first time, Lucas Black, the man who had built walls around himself, allowed himself to lean into someone else. They had crossed a threshold, not just in their mission, but in each other's lives. The rain had finally stopped. The night outside the warehouse hung in stillness, like the sky itself had paused to exhale. Inside, the low glow of an old desk lamp cast long shadows across the room. Grace sat curled in a corner, knees drawn close. Lucas moved slowly around the space, shoulder bandaged, eyes fixed on files and maps littering the table. For the first time in days, there was no chase, no chaos, only silence. And that silence unnerved Grace more than any siren ever had. She watched Lucas pace. His jaw was tight, his mind clearly spinning toward whatever came next. And all she could feel was the growing space between them, a distance not caused by secrets anymore, but by what might never be spoken. She had changed. The quiet girl who once scraped by now carried the weight of choices and consequences. She had faced a man who shattered her world and walked away standing. Yet deep down, she feared what she already knew, that Lucas belonged to a world of control, of decisions, of redemption arcs she had never been offered. She stood still, quietly hoping to slip away. Just to walk, just to breathe. But Lucas stopped her, not with force, just a soft, strained voice. "Where are you going?" Grace paused, just stepping out for a minute. He noticed the backpack over her shoulder, the tension in her expression. "You planning to leave?" "Weren't you?" she said, her voice low. She couldn't meet his eyes. "Maybe it's time I go." "Lucas, you don't need me anymore. You've got everything. The evidence, the plan. You can take Vale down without me." Lucas stepped closer, grimacing through the pain in his side. "That's not what this is about." Grace shook her head. "Isn't it? You've got something to fight for. I was just someone caught in the crossfire. Wrong place, wrong time. I don't fit here. I don't belong in your world. You've got money, influence. I've got survival." Lucas's voice dropped to a rasp. "Is that really what you think I see when I look at you?" Her throat tightened. "I don't know what you see. I just know what I see every time I face the mirror. A waitress, a girl whose family was wrecked, someone who had to fight for everything. Food, a place to sleep, a life that never felt like it was mine." She looked up, eyes shining. "You can rewrite everything. You have the power to change lives. I'm just..." Lucas closed the distance between them, stopping just short of touching her. "Grace, do you want to know what I see? I see the one person who stayed when things got dangerous. The one who put herself on the line, not just for herself, but for others she didn't even know. The one who pulled me back when I was ready to disappear." Grace lowered her gaze, fingers tugging nervously at her backpack strap. "You don't need me to win this. You're strong enough. I'm just..." Her voice cracked. "I'm just tired of losing, Lucas. I don't want to lose you too. But I don't know how to be a part of your life." His expression softened as he gently reached for her hand, clasping it in his. His touch was firm, warm. "You don't have to be anyone but yourself. Do you know why I let you stay? Why I needed you here? Because you were the only person who saw me as a man, not a mission, not a symbol, not a name in headlines. You made me want more than revenge. You made me want hope." A tear traced down Grace's cheek. "Why do you care, Lucas?" "Why me?" He didn't release her hand. "Because you're the reason I'm still standing. The reason the worst version of me didn't win. You pulled me back from the edge. You're not just surviving, Grace. You're living. And because of you, I remembered how to live." Her breath caught, emotions churning inside like a rising tide. "But what if I'm not enough for you? What if I never will be?" Lucas shook his head gently. "You are enough. More than enough. I don't want perfection. I want something real. With you. I don't care about money. I don't care about power or vengeance. Not anymore. I care about you. I care about us." They stood in quiet stillness. Grace allowed herself to feel everything. The pain, the longing, the fragile hope she'd buried for so long. For one small moment, she let herself believe she might deserve it. Finally, she whispered, "I don't know how to start again, Lucas." He squeezed her hand. Then let's start together. No more running. No more hiding. Just us. In the soft warehouse light, their shadows blended into one on the wall. Grace slowly let her backpack fall to the floor, tears running freely. Not from fear, but from the terrifying beauty of hope. Lucas wrapped his arms around her. You're not alone, Grace. Not anymore. As dawn lit the edges of the old warehouse, they stood side by side, facing whatever came next, not as rich man and waitress, not as hero and casualty, but as two people who had survived and still chose each other. The warehouse felt unusually still the next morning. Sunlight poured through cracked windows, catching on scattered files and frayed cords that once mapped every piece of Lucas's revenge. But now the room felt different. Less like a war room, more like a place waiting for justice to arrive. Grace and Lucas sat together on a bench near the wall. They spoke little, but the quiet wasn't empty, it was steady, full. Their hands found each other's without needing words. As night fell, Grace stood before Lucas, holding the flash drive. Everything was on it. Names, accounts, recordings, every piece of evidence they needed to bring Henry Vale down. We have everything, she said quietly, locking eyes with him. It's time. Lucas gave a small nod. He had spent years preparing for this, chasing shadows and piecing together fragments. But now the moment was real, solid, daunting. He turned toward Grace. Are you ready for what comes next? He asked. It won't be easy. I wasn't ready when I lost my father, or when I washed dishes for 2 years just to afford a place to sleep. But I showed up anyway, she replied, her voice unwavering. And I'll show up now. Lucas felt his chest tighten. He'd never met someone like her, wounded by life but never defeated, built of pain, persistence, and something unbreakable. Together, they sent the files to top news networks under anonymous names. They mailed physical copies to trusted investigative reporters. Then they waited in silence. In a matter of hours, the headlines broke. Billionaire Henry Vale exposed corruption, fraud, offshore accounts. Reporters rushed to fact-check, investigate, and report. Evidence spilled out like a dam bursting. Names, numbers, proof. The media storm hit instantly. Vale's corporate offices were flooded with attention. Markets reeled. By morning, officials announced a formal investigation, but there was no time to celebrate. Lucas and Grace knew this wasn't the end, just the beginning. Grace was called to testify, as both a victim and a witness. Her words would be essential to humanizing the case. The idea of speaking before a room of strangers twisted her stomach into knots. But Lucas stood by her the entire time. When the day came, she walked in wearing a simple navy dress. No makeup to hide her history. She wore like armor. Her voice was clear and strong. My father was a quiet man, she began, meeting the jury's eyes. He spent 2 decades working in a small business. One day, he trusted the wrong person, Henry Vale. Within 6 months, we lost everything. Our house, my college savings, my father's sense of hope. She hesitated, her voice softening. 3 weeks later, he took his life. A sharp breath echoed through the courtroom. I spent years drowning in anger, fear, and shame, she said, until someone showed me that healing begins with truth. I'm not here for revenge. I'm here to prevent this from ever happening again. Lucas watched from the back. He'd seen agents under fire, people risking their lives. But he'd never seen courage like Grace's. After the hearing, Grace stepped out into the sun. The air tasted like a strange mix of victory and grief. She turned and found Lucas waiting for her on the courthouse steps. You did it, he said. No, she replied. We did. They walked to the car in silence, years of weight beginning to lift. As they drove away, Grace asked softly, what happens now, when the cameras turn off, when people stop watching? Lucas was quiet for a moment. Then he said, I spent so long chasing justice, I forgot what peace looks like. But today, watching you stand there, I realized I don't need headlines. I don't need revenge. He looked at her. I just need you. Grace looked down, heart swelling and breaking at once. I'm scared, she whispered, that this is too good to last. Lucas reached for her hand. Then let's make it real. They drove in silence until Lucas turned off the road, stopping in a quiet park. The sun dipped low over the treetops. He stepped out, circled to her side. She joined him on the grass, wind brushing her skin, the air tinged with change. I used to think destroying Vale would set me free, Lucas said, but I was wrong. He turned toward her, voice shaking. If I lose everything again, my name, my wealth, my fight, it won't matter, as long as you're still with me. You're not just part of the story, Grace. You're the ending I never saw coming. Tears shimmered in her eyes as she reached up, gently touching his face. And you're the reason I believe people get second chances. They stood together, wrapped in silence and each other. No longer fugitives, no longer hiding. Just two people choosing to stay. Two souls still mending, but mending together. And when Lucas leaned down and kissed her forehead, it wasn't a forever promise. It was a vow for today, for every day after, to face truth side by side. The cabin sat peacefully at the base of the mountains. Its wood weathered with time. Wildflowers curled over the porch, dancing in the morning wind. A year had passed since the world watched Henry Vale fall. A year since Lucas and Grace stopped running. Now their lives were quiet. Lucas restored old furniture, tending a modest garden out back. Grace had started writing her first book. The car that changed everything was nearly finished. Some chapters were raw with grief, others soft with redemption. It wasn't a story about Vale. It was about how the smallest wrong turns, like stepping into the wrong car, can lead to everything that truly matters. On a cool autumn day, Grace sat at the kitchen table, fingers tapping slowly on the keys, her mind drifting between memory and possibility. Lucas walked in carrying a stack of firewood, letting out a quiet grunt as he set it down. "Almost finished?" he asked, dusting off his hands. Grace gave a warm smile. Just one page left. Before he could respond, a knock sounded at the door. They exchanged glances. Neither had been expecting anyone. Lucas stepped forward and cautiously opened it. An older woman stood on the threshold, her gray coat buttoned up tight, hands trembling. Her eyes met Grace's, already welling with tears. "I'm sorry to come uninvited," she said in a trembling voice. "You're Grace, aren't you?" "Grace Holloway." Grace nodded slowly. "Yes. Can I help you?" The woman stepped closer. "My name is Linda. My son, he worked inside Vale's company. He was one of the whistleblowers. They ruined him. He tried to speak out, but couldn't prove anything. He kept fighting, and..." Her voice cracked. "He didn't make it." Grace felt her chest tighten. "But because of you," Linda continued, "the world knows now. Because of what you did, his death meant something." She reached forward and took Grace's hands in hers. "I came here just to say thank you." Then she pulled Grace into a hug, a deep, emotional embrace filled with sorrow, appreciation, and something more. Peace. Silent tears rolled down Grace's cheeks as she returned the embrace. When Linda finally pulled away, Lucas appeared behind Grace, wrapping his arms gently around her waist, grounding her in the stillness of the moment. Together, they watched as Linda walked slowly down the gravel path, framed by maple trees. The sun dipped behind the mountains, casting warm gold across the valley. Lucas kissed Grace softly on the temple, and they stepped onto the porch. They stood there quietly, watching the open field ahead. No sirens, no shadows, no secrets, only the wind rustling the leaves and the quiet rhythm of two hearts that had finally found peace. There were no pursuers. No one left to escape. In that sacred stillness, held in each other's arms, they knew something essential. They had survived. They had chosen one another. And at long last, they were home. If the story touched something deep within you, if it reminded you that even the longest, darkest nights can lead to new dawns, that healing often comes in unexpected ways, and that love can rise even from the ashes of despair, then maybe you, too, believe in second chances. Grace and Lucas didn't just make it through. They chose to live again, to love again, to build something beautiful from the broken pieces. Their story reminds us that sometimes the wrong turn leads us to the right person. If this story moved you, don't let it end here. Click like, subscribe, and tap the bell icon so you never miss another story that heals, inspires, and stays with you long after it ends. This is Echoes of Resilience, where every journey leads back home. See you in the next one.